Welcome to today's webinar. This is the fourth in our Clear-Sighted Career Series. Today we're going to be exploring elevator pitches. Title of today's presentation, Selling Yourself, Elevator Pitch Step by Step. And these targeted webinars that constitute our series are intended to be practical and actionable. So what we cover today you can use soon thereafter. Welcome again. My name is Sharon Kane. I am the Director of Professional and Academic Programs here in the Alumni Association. I'm going to moderate today's webinar that includes a presentation, we have a polling question, and we're going to be taking your questions. So the questions we hear, what do you do, or tell me about yourself, are among the most frequently asked questions. In today's webinar, we're going to provide you with a straightforward framework for developing and ultimately delivering your answer to those questions in the form of a compelling elevator pitch. So to make the most of our time together, our expert Larry Westfall, who's Director of Graduate Career Services, will lead us through his presentation. You should see it on your screen. And we'll leave time for your questions at the end. But please feel free to submit your questions at any time during Larry's presentation. You can do that using the prompts in the Q&A section in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. So this webinar is being recorded and will be posted to my Notre Dame website under Connect in the Multimedia Resources section. It's my pleasure to introduce Larry Westfall, who joined Notre Dame's graduate school in November of last year. He has a director role, and in that role he sets the strategic direction. And he also oversees the team of people who support our graduate students through a variety of career services and professional development programs. Larry was with the University of Illinois for 2 years prior to joining Notre Dame, and when he was with the University of Illinois, he was managing MBA career services. And Larry's also had a very successful corporate career, predominantly in human resources. And so he brings his experience working with graduate students, MBA students, other alumni, as well as his corporate lens to bear in today's presentation. So thank you, Larry, for sharing your expertise with us, and we appreciate the information and insights you're going to share.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sharon, and good afternoon to everybody. I'm very pleased to be with you today and talk about crafting your elevator pitch. So I do have a few slides that I'll cover with you, and then we'll leave some time at the end for questions. And I promise you that we won't belabor the point, and we'll get off the phone so you can watch the U.S.-Germany World Cup game, which I believe has just started. So let's get moving. So while the elevator pitch is a concept that comes out of the world of entrepreneurship, in truth it can be applied to a variety of different situations, including your career. And I'm sure at some point in the process of advancing your career, as myself, you've been confronted with this question, so tell me about yourself. And how you answer it won't necessarily make you, but it certainly could break you if you don't answer it in a very thoughtful or compelling way. Michael Cordry, who is the founder of Lansing Capital Management, once stated that your personal pitch is essentially the bait that you are fishing with. The key question to ask yourself is this: what are you trying to catch? So before we jump into how we go about the steps in going about crafting your elevator pitch, let's do one of our polling questions. So Sharon's put up a polling question for us. So if you had to give your personal elevator pitch a grade, what would it be? A for exemplary, B pretty good, C it's okay, D not good, F uh-oh, and G to be developed. So it looks we've got about 66% of the folks responding, giving it a grade of a C. That's it's okay, which is good. So that gives me some room to work with today. So hopefully by the end of today's conversation, we'll be able to give you some tips and some tricks that will make your personal elevator pitch more interesting, more compelling, and more impactful in the process. So have you ever been seated next to your boss's boss at a dinner or possibly a company social event? Maybe you're the lucky or possibly unlucky one that you're riding up the elevator with a senior partner of your firm or perhaps the keynote speaker at a conference. And if that's you, do you stare intently at the floor or maybe at your smartphone, hoping that they may not notice or engage you, or are you one of the brave few who speaks up, impresses them with your articulate introduction of yourself, and then leaves them thinking, wow, that's really somebody that I should watch out for or get connected with? So be it fear or complacency, many of us choose to bury ourselves in the comfort of our smartphone or kind of wish that the elevator would move a bit more quickly or hope that the boss's boss might excuse themselves before we have to engage in that conversation or discussion. Because after all, what could we possibly have to say to them that would be interesting or would even sound smart? So making no impression at all in this case is sometimes preferable to making a bad one. So we don't say anything beyond possibly hello, and then later as we replay it, we kick ourselves for not having taken advantage of the opportunity. So crafting an elevator pitch, personal elevator pitch, is one of the most difficult things to do in business. Entrepreneurs have been doing it for years. That's where the pitch got its start. They spend a lot of time thinking about and crafting the pitch as they attempt to raise venture capital to get people excited about a new business idea. Obviously, new grads, job seekers are conditioned to think long and hard about their personal pitch when they're looking for a new job or interviewing with prospective employers. But entrepreneurs looking to raise capital or people looking for jobs aren't the only ones that are using pitches on a regular basis. Each one of us are using it on an everyday basis. We are continuously presenting and promoting ourselves, or if you will, branding and marketing ourselves to others. So for instance, you just landed that new job or that promotion within your company. Who are you now? How is that defining you? What do you do? How are you unique? Your job's turned into something humdrum and you're contemplating a change. What's next for you? Who's in your network? Where to from here? Perhaps you're getting ready to attend a professional association conference or a networking event. What's intriguing about you? What will pique somebody's curiosity? Or even something as simple as you've recently moved to a new area or maybe a new neighborhood. And what do you say when you meet somebody new in a social event? As Tom Peters advocated in the late 1990s, and it still holds true in my opinion today, regardless of age, regardless of position, regardless of the business we happen to be in, all of us need to understand the importance of branding. We are the CEOs of our own companies. Me Incorporated is what he tagged. To be in business today, our most important job is to be the head marketer for the brand called you. So with each new introduction, you want to make a positive first impression because you never are quite certain where that relationship or that connection might lead to. A famous lawyer once said that his gift was being able to decide of all the potential stories to tell a jury, which one would resonate the most, would be the most believable. And this is the essence of your job with your personal elevator pitch. You need to decide which story will resonate with your particular audience, whether it's running into your boss's boss or running into a family friend, meeting a senior executive for the first time, or perhaps even meeting a new client. Just as you have multiple online personalities or profiles from Facebook to Twitter or maybe LinkedIn, you should also have different pitches or stories that fit these various situations. So you need to ask yourself what part or parts of your background, be it academic, personal, professional, do you want to highlight? What experiences have been most influential or transformative for you? And what would be of most interest to the person or persons that you're speaking to? Understand these different elements of your story and being able to package those elements effectively, depending again upon the audience and your objectives, will enable you to position yourself effectively no matter what the situation is. So when you're structuring your personal pitch, keep in mind 3 general rules. First, keep it conversational. The goal is not to deliver a 60-second commercial or a monologue. The goal is to engage in a two-way conversation, a dialogue. A successful personal pitch is where the other person relaxes and says, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. The second rule is keep it short. 30 to 60 seconds of actual talk time is a very long, uninterrupted period of time. So remember, the elevator pitch is not a sales pitch. Think in 10-second increments to elicit a response from the listener. And third, use situational language. Avoid words like synergy, optimize, efficiency, ROI, unless they're appropriate for the situation. One idea is to write down your pitch, then take a red pen and cross out all the cliches or marketing speak terms that we tend to use and replace them with one-syllable words. Generally, there are two primary goals with a good personal elevator pitch. First, you're either looking to make a good impression, or two, you're looking to enhance your professional network. And the two are not necessarily mutually exclusive, and they can be complementary, but each serves its own purpose. So let's take a look. The first, in terms of making a good impression, you can do that in several ways. You can sound super smart and impressive by knowing your field of work extremely well. You can make somebody want to work with you or for you. So basically, trying to encourage them to join your team. You can make somebody want you to work for them or advocate on your behalf, maybe for a promotion or getting on the fast track at work. Or you can show how good you are at what you do without coming across as overconfident or potentially arrogant. The second goal is enhancing your professional network, and you can do that in several ways. You can do that by increasing the number of people you know, or you can improve the quality of the people that you consider a connection or you consider in your network. I highly recommend doing a bit of diagnostics on your network periodically to determine if it's comprised of up-and-comers, decision makers, influencers, or well-connected professionals, and refresh it as needed. To determine your personal pitch goals, take a page from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and habit number 2, which is begin with the end in mind. And so ask yourself, what's the nature of this interaction? What type of event or situation is it? What do you want to accomplish as a result of these engagements? And then once you have your objective in mind regarding your outcome, you can now go back to the beginning and begin to craft your story. So there are numerous frameworks that can help you craft your personal pitch, and one that I found to be most effective, and I've used it frequently with students and professionals, was developed by Jody Glickman. Jody is the founder of Great on the Job, and she's a regular contributor through the Harvard Business Review. She works with individuals and organizations regarding workplace communication strategies and how to be great on the job. And Jody contends that we typically think and talk about ourselves in reverse chronological order. So start with the most recent experiences, but those might not always be the most relevant to the conversation. She advocates that there's no rule that says we have to start with our bio and go backwards. So again, think about the goal of the interaction. What are we trying to get out of it? If you're a job seeker or a career changer, maybe the relevant part of your story is the destination. Where are you trying to get to? Where are you going? What do you want to do? If you're not necessarily looking for a job, then perhaps consider, why are you great at what you do right now? How is it that what you do is different than other people? Or what's unique or memorable about you? Or why do you love to do what you do? So as you can see on this slide, Jody has a simple 3-step framework that she follows and that I advocate. The first step is destination. Where are you going? Forward looking. What's next in your career? What's your next professional goal? What are you doing today that's making a difference? And you need to communicate your story and your value to others. The second step is, what is your backstory? So set some context for individuals. It's a bit backward looking. What makes you qualified? And in this case, think skills versus industry or years of experience. In many cases, we tend to think in terms of, I have 10 years of experience in, And what we're really trying to get to in the backstory is what are the relevant skills that you have or relevant experiences? How did you get there? What did you do before this? What was your motivation that got you to this point? And how do you make sense of your story in a compelling way? So the third step is then to connect the dots. So that's the forward momentum. Why does this all make perfect sense to you? Bring it all together for the listener. How do you connect the dots of what you've done in the past with what you're doing now and what you hope to be doing in the future? So give them your destination, provide the context of your backstory, and then connect it all together for them in a way that's compelling and interesting. So you're probably sitting there saying, okay, that's a great framework, but I'm not sure how I really get started on this. So let's talk a little bit about some sample language that can help you in framing your destination. So on this slide, in terms of the destination, you could think about starting out with this role will be a great intersection of my prior experience and, or perhaps my goal is to really dig down and learn the operations of the organization. Or I'm looking to broaden my experience and go into financial operations. Or how about I'm excited to be part of the firm and get back to my roots in consulting. Or possibly I recently made a shift into general management from account management, which allows me to have a broader impact in the organization. In each one of these different statements, you've provided forward-looking verbiage that gives the listener an idea about where you're heading or what you're currently engaged in. And hopefully it will generate a positive and energetic response to, so what do you do? So when we think about the backstory, some of the language that sets the context here could be something along the lines of, my move into marketing research was logical after spending 3 years in marketing with Procter & Gamble, and I've always been intrigued by what drives consumer habits. My desire to start my own business was grounded in my prior work as a consultant for a startup organization. I love project work, and I wanted to contribute to projects where I could see the beginning, the middle, and the end within a reasonable time frame. Or your backstory, remember I mentioned that could focus on your relevant skills that support your destination. So maybe it's something along the lines of, I'm great with details and executing projects, so this change to operations is a good fit for my skill set. Or you might even say, I honed my skills as a quick learner given my prior experience in the tech industry where things were changing rapidly. Again, the focus is on relevancy, not always recency. And then lastly, connecting the dots. Connecting the dots can be a bit tricky for people, particularly if you're making a career change or moving from one industry to another, because it may not be as intuitively obvious to individuals as to why you're good at this or why you should be considered for this. And so you need to find words that describe the logical nature of the change. Something along the lines of, I love biotech research, but I'm looking to make a change to help advise early-stage, high-growth companies. Or maybe it's, I've spent 5 great years at Procter & Gamble, but I'm excited about this new role at Target, and I hope to add significant value given my marketing background. Or maybe it's, I've always wanted to work for myself one day. I love the challenge of building something of my own and executing my own ideas. So we're using language that resonates with the listener and sets you up as someone who's confident, knows what they're going after. And remember our earlier example of the lawyer picking the right story to tell the jury, make it compelling and impactful and make it have a difference. So I put together an example of all three of these components so you could see what it actually looks like. And I'm going to run through this. This happens to be my personal pitch that I've crafted and that I've used recently given my recent joining of Notre Dame. So hi, I'm Larry Westfall. I recently joined Notre Dame as the Director of Graduate Career Services. I help graduate students achieve the change they seek for their future personal and professional success. And I've been very fortunate to leverage a successful career in human resources for several global Fortune 500 companies, leading change initiatives, talent management, also coaching and developing employees in my transition to higher education. And after spending about 2 years recently at the University of Illinois managing MBA career services, I was very confident that my skills and my unique background were a good fit for what I see as this transformation that's occurring within higher education and career services. So as you can see, I provided the listener with information regarding my destination, what am I doing today, what am I doing right now, followed by my backstory, how I got to Notre Dame, and then finally a few comments on how I connected the dots for them, why this makes sense, and how my background and qualifications are indeed meeting a need that I saw. And I use key words that would resonate with the listeners and that could also elicit follow-up questions. For example, new to Notre Dame, global Fortune 500 companies, skills in coaching talent management, time at University of Illinois, transformation in higher education. So hopefully these would generate or begin to develop more of a dialogue or a conversation. So my scenario could be used as an introduction to a new colleague or at a conference. It could be meeting a new faculty member in my new role. My goal here in putting this together was to sound credible and qualified and to give the individual listener confidence with the breadth and depth of my background and my experience. And hopefully I've kept it relatively conversational, short, and also keeping it in everyday language. So if we take a pause for a moment and check off what we've covered up to this point regarding the elevator pitch. So first, we've talked about at the beginning step of the ladder there, we've talked about determining your story. So we're thinking about our background, our goals, we're understanding what's unique and compelling about our story and about ourselves, and those interesting things that we want other people to know. And we touched on clearly identifying our goals. So what's the purpose of the interaction? What am I looking to accomplish? Is it making an impression, or am I trying to enhance my network, or is it a little bit of both? And then the next step is we talk through how do you begin crafting your story to meet your goals. And we incorporated our framework around the destination, where are you going, or what are you doing? What's the backstory? Where have you been? What's your prior experiences? And then we connected the dots for the individuals. We gave them forward momentum. Why does this all make sense? And then finally, we discussed the 3 rules to incorporate, which is keep it conversational, short, and use everyday language. But I would contend that there is a 5th and final step to this process, and that's practice, practice, practice. To be the best in your personal pitch, you need to do your homework, and you need to practice. You need to talk to friends, ask for advice, practice with colleagues, a partner, a spouse, and see if you bore them or are they actually intrigued. And the more you practice, the more you will sound natural and you will sound conversational in the process. So a final thought is that the key to this personal pitch is to have all your accomplishments at the top of mind. This isn't just one pitch. It's going to be many pitches and many different accomplishments. And you're going to need to have those ready and available for that next or that specific interaction. You know, what's your destination? What's your backstory? What's the supporting facts that you want to highlight to that individual? You need to know your stuff, and you need to listen to where the conversation is going or leading, and then be prepared to launch into a longer response if somebody inquires further. But again, the goal here is not necessarily a single pitch, but a couple different pitches depending upon the situation and depending upon the messages and the goals that you have in the process. So that's where we end today in terms of the personal pitch. So I trust that you've picked up a few ideas and some tips on how to maybe make your personal pitch a bit more impactful, or to how to structure it a little bit differently, and possibly will give you a bit more confidence as you move into different scenarios or different situations where you can then begin to practice or put that pitch into practice. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Sharon and respond to any questions that you have. Sharon?
Larry, thank you very much. We have received several questions, so we want to dive in. The first one comes from Susan, who's asking a question that may be representative of other situations. In her case, she's had an established career for 20 years. She's gone to school, and she'd like some tips on what's most important to highlight in a short elevator pitch when you're changing direction in your career.
Right, and that's a tricky one because a lot of times, while it may be intuitively obvious to us, it may not be obvious to somebody else why I'm actually switching this career. So I think the most important thing to remember in that scenario is to highlight the elements of the change that's important. So why is that change important to you? So for instance, maybe you went back to, maybe you were a chemist or a researcher for the past 10 or 15 years, and you suddenly decided that you wanted to make a change and a career switch, and you had gone back and you were getting some additional courses in finance, and suddenly you were intrigued with finance. And so, you could talk in terms of the fact that finance or business suddenly became very intuitive to me, and it started to make more sense. Or maybe you think about some of the maybe more process-oriented things that you were involved with in your job previously or your prior career, and then pull those elements through. The key here is that you don't have to necessarily explain everything as to why you're the rationale behind making the change, but pull through those threads or those elements that motivated you, that show that you are going to be good at what you're going to do in this next career or in this particular switch. So you want to pull those elements of your prior background and experience forward to show them why this makes sense and why this change is going to be okay for you.
Great. Sarah writes in a good question. How would you adjust this approach if you're not pitching yourself, but rather your organization?
So that's interesting, and I hadn't thought about that, but that is a good way that you could use this process. So the destination, I think the framework would still apply. I think that the destination is what is your organization good at? What is the mission of your organization? What are the values that they have? And then, or what are you looking to do? So maybe over the next 3 to 5 years, there's a particular growth strategy, or maybe you're looking to capitalize on changes in the marketplace, or you're getting ready to launch a new product into the marketplace that is going to do X, Y, and Z, or make substantive changes in a particular area. So the destination piece for me is very plausible. That's connected to your mission as well as to potentially a growth strategy or a forward-looking strategy. The backstory really is the basis of how did this company come about? What are the values of this organization? How are you grounded in terms of, is it manufacturing, is it operation, is it intellectual knowledge? And then connecting the dots is just, again, showing them how all this makes sense. So given the fact that we've got a long history or a strong history in this particular type of industry, it led us to believe and show that we had the capability or capacity to launch out in this new type of adventure. Or possibly because of the fact that we grew organically, we were able to do certain things. So I do think that there is value in still using the framework. You're just thinking about it in terms of your company and maybe more the strategic direction of the company and the forward-looking aspect of the organization as opposed to thinking about it from yourself.
Great. Thank you, Larry, and thank you to the participants. As Larry said, we trust that this has given you ideas on how you can deliver a stronger answer when you're asked the simple questions of, what do you do, and tell me about yourself. So I encourage you to use this session. It is being recorded. Some have asked about the posting. We do post our clear-sighted career webinars on My Notre Dame. And if you go to Notre Dame and click on Connect and Career and Professional, and then you will go to the Multimedia Resources page, and behind the login you will find the 3 that we had done prior, and shortly we will add today's webinar to that multimedia resources library. So thank you for that. Thank you for joining us today. Our next webinar is scheduled for July 24th. It is called Navigating Your Career with ND Alumni Tools, Resources, and Services. Annie Duffy, our career advisor, and myself will be walking and talking participants through our portion of the My Notre Dame website with a special eye towards giving you insights into the tools and other resources that we provide to Notre Dame alumni. So we're very excited to do that and encourage you to join us. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Larry, for sharing your expertise. We appreciate it, and until next time, thank you.
Thanks, Sharon.